You know, despite the state of the world today, there's no doubt that we can still find beauty in so many places. Certainly there's beauty in nature, especially here in Idaho. There's beauty in great art. There's beauty in the human face. Another place we can find great and magnificent beauty is in architecture. Think about the idea of starting with nothing and then creating something so beautiful and so strong. We'll start right here with this church. It's called Our Lady of the Snows. Its architect, Jim Mclaughlin. This is Blueprint. Here in Sun Valley, Idaho, when you hear the name Jim Mclaughlin, people sit up and take notice. He is simply put one of the best at what he does. Some of the most exquisite homes in Idaho have his indelible mark on them. But not just homes. All over the world, his beautiful structures, resorts, office buildings, retreats, and hideaways stand out as timeless and unforgettable. There is a signature to Jim Mclaughlin's work that is undeniable. Let's cross the bridge.
Let's cross the bridge. We're going from your everyday world into a religious space.
It feels so good to walk in.
And this was the experience I wanted people to get when you walk through these doors and all of a sudden you're embraced with nature.
And because I'm such a color person, you know what's always amazing to me is how many colors of green there are in the world, particularly Idaho.
Right.
There just must be 60 colors of green just there.
Well, and the other part that you notice now is that we have this whole lower outside area for weddings and outdoor functions. It's very private, very lush with all the plantings, and completely invisible from the street.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now that I'm close to this lighting, it's magical.
Well, that was the intent. We wanted to draw your attention to the altar.
Whenever I walk in to Our Lady of Snows, the first thing I'm drawn to is that unbelievable blast of light. It's very, I don't mean to go overboard, but it's very heavenly. What is that?
Well, that was one of the objectives. We were trying to create or accent the altar, and we were trying to do it in a very unusual way. In some of my trips, I'd noticed various light fixtures, but none of them, and most were very traditional, and none were directly over the altar, but it sparked an idea, and so I started doing some research, talked to some friends, and a friend of mine recommended that I consider Sharon Marsden of London, who has done a number of fixtures. Now, most of hers were in public buildings, hotels. They weren't religious buildings. And so when I got a hold of her and we started talking about the idea, and I mentioned that our church was called Our Lady of Snows, and that I wanted this very abstract but ethereal type fixture that would accentuate the altar, and being here, we collaborated and went back and forth over the internet, and finally she came up with this design, fiber optic with the hand-blown glass.
So as we sit here, Jim, in Our Lady of the Snows, do you look around and say to yourself, I'm complete with this. This is exactly what I wanted? Or are you like, you know, sometimes an actor will go see their movie and they'll be sitting in the audience and they'll go, oh, I would have done that scene differently. Is it everything you wanted?
It's pretty close to everything I wanted.
But not quite.
Well, every day you experience things that influence even the tiniest things that you would design or the way you look at things. And so there are not many things that I would change, but there are always little details that pop into your mind that you wonder, well, should I have done this or did I do that? But
I imagine it's a little more challenging, and you tell me if this is so, to start with something old that you take down and then rebuild, as opposed to starting brand new, because people get attached to the old.
Oh, very, very definitely. So you're absolutely right. It's one thing to come into a community and build a brand new church and not follow a previous building. In this case, I was. And so we had to convince the parishioners that this was the right thing to do, and there were a lot of reasons that they were considering a new church. But this gave me a fresh start.
Yeah.
But obviously, there were a lot of people hanging on to the old church, and so those were the challenges. That's
an interesting concept that you're sharing with us here on Blueprint, because I would think it's challenging enough to be an architect, but you do have to be a bit of a therapist is probably not the word I'm looking for.
That's for homes.
Yeah.
You're a therapist when you do homes.
Are you a therapist when you do homes?
Right.
Really? I guess, come to think of it, you're a therapist of sorts with everything you do, because you've got parishioners saying, I don't like that. And in homes?
Well, they're very personal, and your church is very personal. And so you're trying to convey an idea, and you're trying to embrace their wishes and take all of those ideas and make it into a building. So,
you know, when people talk about you and, you know, Mclaughlin and Associates, words like timeless come to mind. They always talk about how timeless your work is, and people talk about how meticulous you and your associates are, and they talk about how connected you are to your clients. So whether it's building a home or one of those giant, beautiful resorts that you've built, how do you begin? What's the first thing you guys do? Somebody says, yes, here's this dotted line, it's you. How do you start?
Well, the first thing we always do is sit down and make a list of what they're trying to accomplish. You know, I spend a lot of time with people trying to understand what they're thinking about. And sometimes you can't accomplish all of those things, and so you try to help them understand the things that make sense or the things that will get them where they want to go. But I find if I can spend that time up front with people and really, really understand what they're trying to do, then I can be more successful in coming up with a design that accomplishes that.
How on earth did you create holiness through architecture? Because you did.
Well, that's the ultimate compliment. That was my goal. Was when you walked in here, you got it. You were in a very special space, and so.
It really moves you.
It does.
It moves you that I've said that. Shall we take a little walk and you can show me some details?
Sure.
Thanks. Let's go. Well, what were your liturgical restrictions on the font?
The liturgical needs. Well, we needed a baptismal font, and the liturgical consultant requires that you pass by the baptismal font when you enter the church as a reminder of your baptism.
So the floor is that same natural feeling color.
Right. We had a local artisan stain this floor, and we wanted this color range to go with the woods that we have in the church, and also to make a very warm feeling. We didn't want it to feel like a concrete floor. We wanted it to be a warm color. So one of the items that we discussed at length was the color of these hand-blown glass elements that are part of the design. She had initially suggested white, and I wanted it to be more subtle, and so we finally settled on the clear glass hand-blown fixtures.
You want to know what my interpretation is?
What's your interpretation?
I see 1,000 angels
There you go.
Very clearly.
I think there are about 2,000 fibers in this, so maybe you're just 1,000 short.
Well, maybe there's some little, well, how tall is it? I can't see it at the top.
I
How
think
big
it's
is
about 18 feet tall.
it? Definitely
So.
2,000 angels.
I love that the stained glass is made locally.
Well, these windows were in the original church, and so one of the things that we intended to do, and this is where they ended up, was to incorporate them in the new church. They were designed by Ralph Harris, a local artist, and they were built by Herman Lurk, who is a local glass artist.
And then, as a final touch, Jim actually signed his name on the wall because, true to form, in this church, even the walls were something extraordinary.
Aha. Right there in suede, we have the signature of the architect.
As I left Our Lady of the Snows, I was profoundly aware of the sense of holiness that Jim Mclaughlin had created here. No matter if it's one single person in quiet prayer or a huge and joyous event in a celebration of love and promise.